Greetings, everyone. My name is Shepard Smith, Head of Marketing here at Gravitate Solutions, and I'd like to thank you for joining us today. The topic of today's conversation is how to better harness your chapters. And while we'll move quickly through the next 30 minutes, we welcome questions and would like you to submit them at any time using the written chat function you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen. Everyone in the audience is muted, and we'll be sending all of you a link to a recording of this webinar afterwards. We have two presenters today. The first is Rob Miller of CAE, who many of you know both as a senior association executive until just recently at 340B Health, an association comprised of more than 1,400 hospitals, and as president and co-founder of Avectra, the company that invented the modern web-based AMS with the launch of NetForum. Our primary presenter today is Drew Thomason, Director of Membership and Communications at the Illinois Principals Association. Drew started his professional career as a reporter for a Metro Daily newspaper before making the leap to digital storytelling. Working in the Illinois State House for a brand new online publication, Drew used video, audio, and text to tell complex stories in easily digestible and entertaining ways. Since making the jump to the nonprofit world 6 years ago, Drew has built out the communications department of two organizations. Most recently, he's starting to use metrics and data interwoven with stories and narrative to grow his association. Rob, I'll now turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Shepard. And I want to welcome everyone and extend a special welcome to some of my old colleagues and clients whom I see listed on the webinar today. Brandon and I are very pleased to welcome Drew Thomason, our client from IPA, to our webinar. He has been using Nucleus for over 1 year, and he will discuss his journey to making data analytics a valuable contributor to the success of his business. Drew, I turn it over to you.
Great, thanks so much. One quick fact, I was looking it up, and actually it's a year to the date, I think, when we got access to our first instance of Nucleus. So a pretty great day to do this. Thanks everyone for having me. Little word about our association. We're a mid-range association that focuses on supporting our school leaders here in Illinois, both through our members and non-members, and I'll get into that a little bit later. Next slide. So a little bit about our data analytic journey. Prior to Nucleus, we were keeping everything in a Excel spreadsheet, and we had several different departments that were responsible for numbers involved with that spreadsheet. Often people didn't put those numbers in, so if you went and got that out of our server and looked it up, the numbers might be incomplete. We had to have, constant reminders to do it, and it wasn't for lack of people trying or wanting to do it. It was just hard to remember to do that every month. We then moved to NetForum Enterprise, and along with that move, we kind of reevaluated our whole data and technology integration, decided to go with Nucleus. And like I said, we've been with Nucleus for a year, and it's been fantastic. Next slide. Next slide. I'll come back to this one. So just a little insight on what Nucleus kind of provided us. So like I said, all that data previously that we're kind of pulling into Nucleus now, that all lived in a spreadsheet that might or might not have been up to date. Since moving to Nucleus, all of that data is A, up to date by the minute, and B, it's no longer siloed. The data talks to each other, which has proved fascinating for us, and it's helped reaffirm how some qualitative or things that we have felt. For example, we always thought that our members are the most valuable individuals that we interact with. They are not the majority of the individuals that we interact with, but we thought that they were the most valuable. Well, we looked into it, and we did some crosswalk in Nucleus with our professional development events, where we would be interacting with non-members. And the thing that kind of blew us away was, despite the fact that about 2/3 of the people that interact with us are non-members, they're paying for these events. Despite that, members make up more than 50% of our revenue. So they're a much smaller group, but they're avoiding any kind of free workshops that we might offer that someone might take just to get the professional development they need. They're really seeking out specific professional development, recognize that the association has value, and are willing to pay for it. And it was just an affirmation that our members matter. During a time when we were looking at, our members, they're a small segment of the people that we interact with. How do we dedicate resources? How do we dedicate time? Do we focus more on these non-members? No. It turns out that our members, on an individual basis, are on an individual and on a dollar basis, are worth a lot more to us. So that was just an insight that we were able to garner via Nucleus. All right, if you want to go back to that previous slide now. So here is an instance of how we use Nucleus, not just to get an insight, but to actually get a return on dollar. So we have an annual conference, like I'm sure many of you do. In the past few years, until this most recent one, this last October, we were seeing a decline in attendees. There's a number of reasons for it. Face-to-face professional development for us is kind of given way to online professional development. We were kind of worried about that trend. We had just changed our venue when this decline kind of started to happen to a return to Springfield, where we're located. It had been closer to Chicago previously. So kind of all of these things came together to create some declining numbers. Luckily, we decided not to give up on it. We're going to reinvest in this because it's our single event. It's our single largest revenue event, obviously. I'm sure like it is for most of you. It's a great way to get a read on our members, just on how we're doing as an association, what more we could do for them. It's this big gathering of our members. People are feeling sociable. They're feeling relaxed, and they're willing to share their opinion with us. So it's a great feedback tool for us. It's also we're a pretty large state. I think it takes maybe 8 to 9 hours to drive tip to top. So our chapters, our 21 chapters, don't really interact with each other except for maybe the 2 or 3 that are right next to them geographically. This is a great way for them all to come together under one roof. All right, next slide. So as you can see there on the map, there's our 21 region. And so what we decided to do through our executive director and our board was we set a goal of a 20% increase in registrants. That's the number that we thought was realistic. We thought was realistic, but still aspirational enough that people would be excited about it. And so we decided that we would be able to use Nucleus to do that. So next slide. You can kind of see here what our goal looked like in Nucleus. So we told the regions that they have this goal. If they meet this goal, then they're going to get a little bit of extra cash that they can spend however they want. They can use it on, they could use it for a social event. They could use it for a golf outing. However they want to spend it with their members, they can do that. if they meet their goal for fall conference attendees. And where Nucleus really came into play was we always had the ability to set those goals and to have access to that data to see where we were at with those goals, but it wasn't smooth. Someone would have to log into the back end of the database, run a query, pull that query out, send it over in a format that was usable by our executive director, and just do that whenever he would need that. Luckily, Nucleus made it easy to where you have real-time data that you can pull it up on your screen and see exactly where you are, and he would do that often, and then he was able to update those regions in his weekly update. Next slide. So how did that go? So we set those goals, and I kind of talked about how Nucleus helped see where we were at with those goals. But it also providing those goals to that region, to our regions, to our chapters. Sorry if I'm using that language a little interchangeably. We call them regions, but they're chapters. Providing those goals to those regions and a financial incentive really drove them to drum up attendees. And then what we saw was kind of a runaway effect where at a certain point the money was nice for them, but it wasn't the main driver. It was their competition between each other, which was fantastic. It was great to see. We're in Higher Logic, and it was great to see in the board of directors community people going back and forth saying, yeah, hey, we met our goal, we're going to get another 5, and then someone saying, oh, that's great, we met our goal, we're going to get an extra 10% on top of that. Love to see you get there. Kind of taunting each other in a very kind way, a good-spirited way, but it was great to see that runaway. So we spent about $5,000 on financial incentives, and because of that, we were able to get about $40,000 more in revenue, and it was just it took on a life of its own. It was way beyond the success that we were hoping for. It really to us helped demonstrate the value of Nucleus, the value of setting goals, and then the value of empowering your chapters and regions to go out and accomplish those goals. And that it might take a little bit of money to get them initially invested in the idea, but at a certain point, you'll see, I think with any goal, you'll start to see your region, your chapter leadership get excited about just accomplishing that, and will really take off on their own. Next slide. So looking forward, we have our next big conference coming up in October. We're already in full swing for that. Getting all of our save the dates and everything out. And part of that now, part of our annual process has become this goal setting. So what are we going to do different this year than last year? Well, one of the things we're currently working on is setting up a carousel of goals for the regions that the way we were able to view it in Nucleus previously, it was within our annual conference carousel, and it was one of the main graphs there, but you still had to go into it. Now it's going to be a standalone carousel for showing where each chapter is at in that goal, and us as an association are at within that goal. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, as I said previously, these were numbers that our executive director would send out in his weekly message to those chapters. Now we're going to take it a step further, and we're going to give them access to that carousel. We're going to say, hey, here's your goal. Here's how you can check it anytime, anywhere, and here's how you can see how you're doing compared to the other chapters. I'm really excited about this, and it just really got our wheels turning. I think we're going to add in a membership, some aspect of membership to that too, because our chapters are where the rubber hits the road. They are volunteer leaders, and they are passionate ones that are out there really evangelizing and bringing in new members. So having them have that data at their fingertips, I think is going to really help with that. And it's something I'm really excited. Hopefully we can report back on that in a year on how that turned out.
Well, that's a wonderful story, Drew. Thank you very much. So I want to continue and give you just quickly on, actually how Nucleus works. There's actually 4 components to the system, as you can see on the screen. The first is the data lake. That's where we store all the data. It's big data technology, and it's built to be super fast, which obviously, since we're dealing with all this data, it has to be, and it can handle both unstructured and structured data. The second component of the system is the processing pipeline. This is where the magic happens, and what we really believe is the secret sauce. This is where we combine all the data from all the various systems you have and then transform it in a way to make it very valuable. The third component is the interface, which we believe is very welcoming and really easy for everybody to use, but I'll obviously let you to be the judge of that. And then finally, there's the component which I call, where the processing pipeline is the secret sauce. The actionable output is where the real ROI happens, because it allows you to take data you segmented and then push it over to your email marketing tool and go after that segment with special messaging. So that's where you really get the value of the system. I also want to talk a little bit about the way the chapter role-based capability works. As Drew said, in phase 2 of this, he's going to start displaying this data to the system, or to the chapters. Now, what's really interesting here, though, is that in most, maybe you've been able to do this through your AMS system in the past, but when you're dealing with Nucleus, you have the ability to not only share data with your chapters that's in your AMS, but you could potentially, from your e-marketing, your social community, your survey tool, what any other systems that you have implemented and imported into our system. And as you can see, the way it's set up is through the role-based system capability, the chapters would only see the data for their specific chapters. So it works very easily. I thought you'd also be interested to know that we integrate to pretty much most of the popular systems out there, whether they're AMS, e-marketing tools, survey tools, all those types. And in fact, if we haven't integrated to it yet, it's probably on our roadmap. And we certainly have a smart group of engineers that could integrate to some special system that you may have, which might not be one of these. A couple of other things I'd like you to consider if you are looking at analytics platforms. We believe it's very important that these systems be able to grow without new users and have fees for that. So we want you to be able to allow your board members, your committee members, and in this case, Drew's regional members, to be able to access the system and not be worried about additional fees. We also want the system to grow at no additional charge in terms of storage. These systems gather a lot of data. If you think about your email marketing tool, you might be sending out 5 or 10 million emails a year. So the system gathers a lot of data, and you shouldn't have to pay extra storage fees for that. It should be available anytime from anywhere. It should be able to be used on any device, such as a tablet or a handheld mobile phone. We think the system should be used by everybody, and particularly your most junior membership coordinator or your executive director. I want Drew's executive director to still be able to use the system when he starts sharing the data with the chapters. And then, as I said, that real ROI is being able to initiate engagement. These are all things that come standard with Nucleus, and you should expect with any analytics platform. So with that, I am going to now turn it over to Brandon, who's going to do a quick demo of a few features. So I'm going to turn the capability over to him.
Okay, hi everyone, thanks Rob. You should be able to see my screen now. And so basically I just wanted to walk you through some of the visualizations and data points that really helped Drew's team at their headquarters office in being able to kind of disseminate the data that was necessary to not only reach but surpass their goal for this current year as far as their event registration is concerned. So what we're looking at right now is the events carousel, and you may have heard Drew mention this term as he was walking through his presentation, but the reason it's called a carousel is that we have what we call data cards on the screen here, and as we scroll to the right or the left, we see other data points that are popping up. And so this is the interface that, again, Drew's executive director, their executive team had access into in order to analyze their conference registration a little bit further. So some of the things that we help with from the high level are things like taking a look at registrants and revenue over the last 3 years. So we can see, 2017, 2018, and 2019 here on the screen. If we mouse over any of the data points here, we get a little pop-up that shows us all the revenue that was generated there. What I want to do is you'll see that each of these has an explore link. And when I explore down deeper into registrants and revenue, one of the very useful things that it gives me in here is the ability to take a look at registrants weeks out leading up to the conference. And so you're going to see here both from a new registrants per week and a total registrants or cumulative, how many are coming in on any given week. I have a slider down here at the bottom that allows me to adjust how many weeks I'm looking at so that I can adjust the date range if I prefer. But the real power of Nucleus actually comes from starting to be able to apply filters that contain any demographic or engagement information in any of the source systems that we're utilizing within Nucleus's data lake. So here you're going to see all of those filters. So this is coming from things like Higher Logic, their email marketing platform, things like that. So we're then able to start, adding on additional filters here. So for instance, if I wanted to go to a particular region, and let's say that's Kishwaukee, I hope I'm saying that region correctly here, I check off the box and it very quickly and easily filters for me, and I can see exactly the registrants that are coming in here, and we'll see in 2018 they've got a significant amount more than they did in the previous year of 2017. The other thing that I want to point out is that at any point in time when you're working in Nucleus down here, excuse me, at the bottom of the screen, you do have access into the data table that's making up all the visualizations above. So what this essentially does is through our processing pipeline, it puts everything from all of your source systems into one, master spreadsheet so that you're taking a look at all the information that you have about your members in any of those source systems in the same place. And now I can go in here and I can see everybody's from that Kishwaukee region, but I can start looking for trends as to maybe, this type of member is attending this conference more from this region, and I want to find the other members who are also fit into the criteria that match that particular member here. So that's one of the first things I wanted to show you. The second thing is if I go back to my carousel here and I explore into this registrant's top 5 regions, basically what I'm going to see here, and this is the data that the ED was taking a look at in order to give the regions or the chapters the comparison of how they're doing against each other. So when we take a look at this, essentially what we're seeing are all of the regions down here at the bottom of the screen. Right, and when we mouse over here at the top, we're going to see the total number of registrants that came from that particular region, the revenue that was generated from that region, as well as the average revenue from a registrant that was coming from that particular region. So when we're taking a look at those things here, it just allows us to keep track of things in a very concise place so that you're not working with coalescing spreadsheets together and making sure that you are generating all of the correct data, because that's all happening behind the scenes with our processing pipeline and the logic that's been implemented there. And then in addition to that, any of those same existing filters that we saw across the other visualizations also exist here for us to go ahead and be able to filter by anything that we might need to utilize in order to better serve this particular event and the organization as a whole. So that's just a quick dive into some of the visualizations that helped IPA drive their conference registration forward. And I'm going to hand it back over to Rob and Shepard for some questions.